Hi everyone. Well, I'm home and I a little bit recharged my batteries. It was quite tough, even though the World Cup 2023 was a relatively short tournament for me, but nevertheless, it did take a lot of energy. And finally, I'm home in between the tournaments as always, and I decided to combine these two missions of mine tonight, a title Tuesday as usual on Tuesdays, and a short recap of my World Cup 2023 journey. So, well, let's get going. Let's start. The World Cup is still taking place. The first games of the women's semifinals and of the Open Tournament quarterfinals are being played after a very dramatic tie break yesterday. But as I said, for me, the tournament unfortunately ended in round 3. So let's go over my games and let's have a look at what is going on right now in the World Cup. Round 1, the system of the World Cup has been changed a little bit in the last years, so more players have been added, and thus the top seeded players, they start to play from round 2. Myself included. I didn't play in the first round, but I started to play in round 2. Let me try to find my games. It should be possible somehow. I played against a young Chinese player. I haven't played against her. I didn't know her, Yan Tianji. And let's see, yes. And the first game actually went so well for me that I was even surprised. Well, first of all, my opponent did surprise me with her first move because, well, she's played many openings, but in her first round against an Indian player, she opted for the Berlin defense. She played e5, and then she played the Ruy Lopez and the Berlin defense. And in the match against me, she played e6. Not once but twice, but we'll talk about the second game with black pieces for her a little bit later on. And after, if you have watched my Cairns Cup recap, I lost my last game in the French defense after playing e5 to Anna Zatonskih in Cairns Cup. So here I decided to change it a little bit. Actually, throughout my career, I think I've played, well, maybe not all of the possibilities against the French, because there are some possibilities on the second move that I've never played, but on the third move here, I've tried every single continuation, like reasonable continuation for white. Knight c3, knight d2, e5, e takes d5, and in this particular game I opted for knight c3, knight f6, bishop g5. Again, here bishop g5 and e5 are both possible, and I tried them both. But bishop g5 is a calmer move, we can say, because black usually takes on e4 here. Also, other moves, sharper moves are possible, such as bishop b4 and bishop b7, but d takes e4 is definitely one of the main continuations here. And I captured on f6. Well, there are different move orders possible. Bishop d3, c5. Of course, black's main idea usually is to undermine white's center by playing c5, and then the main question, which is always in the air, whether black will be able to finish development, to develop her bishop, either via d7 or on b7. Usually, if black manages to solve this problem of this light squared bishop, they are doing great. But okay, still some work to do. queen a5, c3, queen takes c5, queen e2, and here my opponent surprised me. Well, I must say she was very well prepared in the opening, in all the games that we've played. She demonstrated a very good opening preparation. Here she played bishop d7. I didn't know this move during the game. In my previous games, black usually castled. And again, they tried to play, of course, bishop d7, bishop c6, or b6 and bishop b7 later on, but that's another story, because if black castles, for example, I castle, here b6 is not possible immediately due to this very famous double attack. And this tactical trick lets white put some pressure on black, so that's why black has to be careful. And bishop d7, actually, bishop d7 is a very interesting idea, and of course the modern computers demonstrated. I mean, they suggest this move, knight e5 I played, which is also quite reasonable, right? I don't want to let black's bishop just develop on c6. After bishop c6 here I'm going to capture, and queen c6 is not going to be possible due to bishop b5, and if black captures back with the b pawn, then the pawn structure will be damaged. Bishop d6, now that's like links of one chain. Bishop d7 is connected with bishop d6 idea, which looks very risky, because I can take, and that's what I did. G takes f6, knight takes d7, king takes d7. And if there would be no queens on the board, we can say that despite this minor damage of the pawn structure on the king side, black is doing more than okay. But the queens are still on the board, and even though there are opposite colored bishops, and thus we know that there are more drawing chances in endgames, but we also know that with opposite colored bishops in the middle game, there are attacks and there are more attacking chances. And of course, that's my main idea, should be connected with attacking the king. Here I played queen to f3. It's not the best move according to the engines. The engine suggests castling immediately, and even though it holds a position for black, it's still, for a human being point of view, it's pretty unpleasant to play with this king in the center with those pawns forever weak, and black has to watch out for those weaknesses at some point being attacked. But I didn't castle long. I opted for another plan. I played queen to f3, double attack, but black can protect this pawn on f6, king f1. And actually during the game I was pretty worried about my opponent just playing king to c7, then rook to d8, king to b8, some kind of artificial long side castle, and then there is no more king in the center, and thus no more attacking chances. Of course those weaknesses are still here, but it's kind of difficult to get to them, and it looks pretty solid for black, pretty drawish I might say. And that's why I was so surprised to see my opponent just ignoring this relatively simple plan, right? You don't want to play usually with your king in the center in the middle game. You do want to hide it somewhere, but she did play rook a to b8, which made me pretty happy, I must say. I played rook e1, queen f4, and again, here I don't want to exchange queens, so I played queen to d1. I'm not sure, maybe queen e2 directly would have been better, but okay, I played queen to d1, and after bishop c5, even though she opens up her king, but she does create the counter attack on the f2, and bishop b5 doesn't lead to anything, because the king will just simply, move away from my checks, and my king will be left all alone and not protected. And she is also, can play king g7 and rook d8 and start attacking my king, so you gotta be careful. That's why I played back to e2, protecting my pawn on f2. My plan is simple. Derek J, hi. Hi everyone. Happy to see you here. Okay, queen to e2, g3, king g2, coordinating my two rooks, and then, I'm gonna try to bring my rooks on the central files, and I'm gonna try to put some pressure on the opponent's king. King e7. Again, I was considering something like king c7, rook d8, and king b8, the plan that I thought is the right one for my opponent, but here, she has to be more careful, because after king c7, the pawn on f7 is hanging, the bishop on c5 is hanging, so I can play g3 at some point, queen h5. King e7, she decided to stay in the center, g3, queen d6, bishop e4, and again, a very easy position for me to play, because my plan, as I explained, is quite simple. Just coordinate my rooks, bring them to the center, and try to put pressure on the king, which is stuck there, which was left intentionally by black on the central files. King g2, and I was pretty surprised, still pretty surprised by my opponent's play, because she just kept waiting. So she just kept moving her queen and bishop, like the next, starting from move 17 to move 27, so like 10 moves, she moved only her queen and bishops around, and okay, she made one king's move, and that's it. So something didn't quite go well for black for some reason, so queen c5, but I have a plan, right? I described this plan to you. Rook e2, queen d7, okay, rook e1. Here I just doubled on the e file, the target is here, bishop f5, bishop d5 is coming, and I want to capture on e6. And okay, little by little, since she just kept waiting, moving her pieces, I arrived to get, to put all the pressure I could on the e6 file, and the position is already lost. Yeah, so the first game left a very like strange, feeling, because my opponent was so well prepared in the opening. She demonstrated a new idea, and it seemed to me that she was so close to equality, but then she just, instead of putting her king into safety, she just kept waiting with her king in the center while I was improving my position. And okay, I just arrived and created this bishop takes e6 threat, e5, and here I could have won simply capturing on e5, f takes e5, queen takes f7, a king king to d8. What was that? Somehow I could have won. Well, no, sorry. Rook takes e5, king to d8, yeah. And then bishop f3 or bishop b3. It's winning, I think, completely. Any move like that or like this, creating this rook d5 threat. And if she plays king c7, there is king f7, bishop g4, and rook d5. That was like the most powerful way to win, the most precise one, the most direct one. But somehow, since I felt that my position is so winning, I didn't want to sacrifice anything, because then you can make a mistake and end up being without material. So I played c4, just protected my bishop. She played bishop d4, f4. And I recreated this idea of capturing on the e pawn, queen d7, queen h5, and queen h4. Yes, and she resigned because, well, just the king is still in the center, and black's position is hopeless. So a very nice start, a very smooth one for me, but in the second game it didn't go my way. It didn't go my way at all. I was playing black, of course. I cannot play 2 in a row with white. Yes, the king safety is #1 rule. And again, my opponent was very well prepared. I decided to go to the marshal, but not to the main marshal, but to this bishop b7 line that I already once played against, actually, the competitor, against Tan Zhongyi in the Astana Grand Prix. It's a possible continuation, but of course you should be better prepared, let's put it this way, if you sacrifice a pawn. So this one is still like a theoretical line. Bishop d2, there were some games, but we're already like in a relatively new territory. White did sacrifice a pawn, but since black did sacrifice a pawn, but since white is not so well developed and her pieces are discoordinated, my bishop is nicely placed on the big diagonal, and I do have some ideas sometimes, right, with putting pressure on the king side. Black has compensation, but compensation is something very sometimes you need to prove this compensation with the moves most of the time. And I played queen to d7, a possible move, but not what I had in my books, opening books. I was planning to play a5 immediately. For some reason I started with queen d7 first, because I thought that if she would capture, I wanted to capture with the rook. Knight a3 a5, that's still possible. Okay, she captured, played queen to f1, which the moves that I liked a lot, because the queen put some pressure on the queen side, and at the same time it keeps an eye on the king side, and it kind of opened the road for the rook. But okay, I played well. Two next moves I made very good decisions. b4, knight c2 and c5, quite straightforward decisions, but like very nice ones. d takes c5, and here I made a mistake. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find the right move order. I captured on c3 first, and instead, I will explain why it's a mistake later, instead I had to play a4 immediately. Because here, I mean in the game, when I captured, I played a4, my opponent played bishop c4. Of course, I mean, if she can, she tries to avoid exchanging her bishop for my knight. But in case after a4, bishop c4 would not be possible due to a3, and suddenly I have very, very good initiative. Still a pawn down, and I'm gonna be a pawn down for a while, but I'm putting some pressure on this c3 pawn, and if she captures on a3, I will win back this pawn and then this pawn, and that's a good position for black. And if she captures, I mean she has to capture here, I capture, rook d1. Here the pawn on a2 is hanging, and what should I do? I think I should take, I don't have time to get there, so I should take, and then I should take probably like this. No, I don't remember my own, so it's not that like easy, and it's not that obvious, because when you calculate in your game, you kind of see this position and you see that you are a pawn down, but you need to go, sometimes you need to go deeper. And here, yes, everything. If she plays bishop f6, that's the key. I have to take on c2. I take on c2. And everything is fine, surprisingly, for me. I'm still a pawn down, but my bishop is putting pressure on g2, and her king is pretty weak. So her pieces kind of needs to solve a lot of problems. And if she plays something like bishop c3, I think I might even have something like a3. yeah, I can play just queen g6 probably. Maybe it's better, because if I try to dive into complications, if I play a3, then who knows, something like, although I mean, of course I like this move, it's a very direct move, but here you need to calculate different moves, such as rook c1. And thank you guys for your support. Queen to f5, exactly where? I want to find it. Go here, she captures, and even here I think I have a very nice compensation. I can play even something beautiful like rook e2, although I would probably play h5 first, trying to keep to open up this window for the king, and then start this tactical shots. So a4 was the move to continue, and unfortunately I didn't go for this move, although I did see the idea with a3, and somehow I was thinking that if I play a4 and she replies with bishop c4, I have a3. But I just couldn't believe, to tell you the truth, that if I capture a4, bishop c4, somehow I couldn't believe that this position is gonna be so much better for her. Because I thought that, okay, I'm gonna capture on c3, you know, okay, she will play rook d1, but this pawn is weak. Yes, it's an extra pawn, but I have a pair of two bishops, and somehow I wasn't thinking clear enough. And when this position appeared on the board and I dove deeper into this position, I realized that it just doesn't look good. And if I take with the bishop, it's also something doesn't work. Yes, +3. Don't remember exactly what. Rook d1 or rook e1, rook d1, and just so unpleasant. So I played queen c7, which seems to be like the best move, the best possibility. Bishop b5, rook c8, queen c4, and here I made a blunder, huge blunder. I mean, I had to take on c5, queen takes c5, rook takes c5, but of course, when I was calculating this line, I saw rook e1, threatening a checkmate, and somehow I decided to improve this line, and that's why I played bishop e5. The problem is that white doesn't have to defend this pawn. If she would, I mean, I was hoping that she would play h3 and then I'm gonna capture, and here rook e1, I mean, is not that good because of because this bishop is hanging, and the bishop on e5 protects the e8 square, and I can play f6 even, and it's much better. But yeah, unfortunately for me, after bishop e5, she has time to play rook e1, which is completely winning. So instead I had to capture on c5, and here, like, I have a very strong move. Of course I can play h5, but the engine suggests that g5 is stronger. I mean, of course, in a practical game it's very difficult to understand, and like the line goes something like this. And then the key point that after rook e7 I have this beautiful bishop d5 move, and it's almost equal. Well, I mean, very, very good chances for a draw, I would say. Very good chances for a draw, and that was just the only way to continue the game. As I mentioned, instead, I just blundered. I made a very bad move, bishop e5, rook e1, and even though my opponent did give me some counter chances, she could have, you know, finished the game earlier, but she never made like a big enough mistake to let me survive. Okay, she let me sacrifice the exchange, which I was very happy about, and here I had the only chance. The only chance was here in the game to pose more problems to my opponent. But I failed to do so. And that was the move knight to e5. And actually white has to be careful, because if she plays something like reasonable enough, such as queen d4, yeah, she loses immediately after queen g5. Suddenly, finally, I managed to get to the king. I managed to attack her her pawn on g2, and it's hard to even understand why white's position is so bad. Let's see, because if she plays queen to f2, then I believe I can even play something like knight to d3, and then since her queen is overloaded with the defense, and luckily my bishop is on c6, protects the pawn, the e8 square. Luckily, somehow I'm just winning material after knight e1. And let's see what's gonna happen if she plays rook to e2, because I've checked my games pretty briefly, as you can see, and I'm even not sure myself what's gonna happen. Because if here I play queen h5 and queen takes e2, then I have a problem, because queen goes to d8. What else can I do? I mean, there are different ideas such as knight to d4, just with checkmating threats, different checkmating threats, and it seems to be the answer. White's king suddenly is very weak. So knight e5 was my last practical chance in the game. Unfortunately, it's still not enough to save the game, but again, my opponent should have demonstrated more skills in that case. But the right move here is queen to f4, not letting my queen get to g5. Knight g6 is the only move here. Luckily, after queen b8 I have knight f8, but here white can just go away, and should, I think, go away. I still can play h6, and okay, the life goes on, even though the position is very unpleasant, but I kind of pushed her queen away, and her king is very weak, so I do have some counterplay. It shouldn't be enough to save the game, but who knows. Instead I played knight f8 in the game, and I completely missed a very strong move of my opponent, a very nice move, which is knight to c8. And suddenly, yeah, it became clear that the knight, which was very far away, pretty far away from the king's side, is getting closer. And again, I could have played better, could have been more stubborn at the very end. Here, for example, the right plan, which is not a very obvious thing to notice, it was connected with h5, and then knight h7, knight g5, so trying to get my knight into play like that. Pretty far from obvious, and somehow was quite desperate already. I played g6, but that's, yeah, game over. Here c4, very nice move, and she just was very precise here. Rook b2, and due to the fact that rook is coming to b8, I resigned. Well, that was quite a sad game, actually, and of course I was not very happy that I lost it, but okay, the life still went on, and I needed to get ready for the tiebreak. I needed to get ready for the tiebreak. Oops. What happened in this game? Ah, they made the draw. Okay. They made the draw. It was a very nice game, actually. I found it a very, very good quality game. Knight b6, queen a7, e5. A very nice game by Salimova, yeah. And she manages to make a draw in the first game. Okay, but let me go on and tell you how to like that. Okay, the tiebreak. The tiebreak, I was already pretty convincingly. I won pretty convincingly with the white pieces. I did change. She did change variation slightly. She played bishop e7 here. Bishop takes f6 was the move that I've played many times before, but here I decided to opt for something very simple because it was a rapid game after all. I captured with the knight, I played knight f3, and again, the position is very close to being equal, but due to the fact that the bishop is stuck here, black still needs to decide this problem. c5 she played, bishop b5, bishop d7, queen e2, and here you can see that, I mean, this problem is almost decided, but it's always this almost feeling that not quite equalizes the position. Knight c6, knight takes d4, yeah, very nice tactical idea. And here, surprisingly, after queen takes d4, rook d1, even though black has a very, like, enough material for the queen, but the problem is that the king is very weak. So if she goes, for example, to e7, I play queen g4, and then my next move is going to be queen b4 with double attack. If she goes to c7, same story. I go to g4, and then my next move is queen f4 with double attack. So she loses at least one of her pawns, and yeah, because of her king's position, it's even in like this endgame, it's not enough for equality. And so that means that she just made a mistake. So it was not precise to capture on d4. And same story, even though we don't have opposite colored bishops here, but her king is pretty weak. Queen e, no, not quite, not quite there yet. Queen e4, rook h to d1. I played nicely here, but I could have played better somewhere here. I spent a lot of time because it felt I mean, of course I could feel in the game that my position is almost winning, but it still again didn't find the most precise way. I played queen f3. That is a nice one, but the problem is that she made a mistake. During the game, I thought that f5 is the strongest move, and I did spend a lot of time trying to understand how to play after f5, and that's why actually instead of queen f3, probably the most precise way to play would have been g4. Now I'm threatening to play rook h1, and actually I saw this idea, but somehow I didn't realize that rook h1 here would be so strong. Because if she plays queen g6, she can't play h takes g6 due to this checkmating idea. So she has to take with the f pawn, but then I just capture and capture one more pawn. But in the game, okay. After all, it was a rapid game. I played queen f3. Hi. Thank you. Welcome back to you too. And f6 is a mistake. She had to play f5, although after g4 her position is still pretty unpleasant, but it's much better than after f6, because after f6 I could have won immediately, and I missed this tactical opportunity again. Rook takes g7 was a very nice move, which I failed to see, and here I'm just checkmating my opponent. Queen g8, king g8, queen g4, queen g7, king g6, also queen g4. And but okay, I played queen g4, and I think I won pretty nicely, although not the most precise way, but at the end I was able to calculate precisely when I needed to. h3, and here I realized that after g takes h3, queen takes f3, queen d5, it's a winning endgame. although you gotta be careful when getting into pawn endgames, but my calculation was good enough. And yeah, I'm winning here. I'm a few tempi ahead. So on the first game, and again, same story, I needed to win, I needed to hold the second rapid game, and somehow, again, it didn't quite go well for me. I mean, at first it went well. Instead of Marshall, I decided to play like the classical, opening the slow variation with h6. And I played bishop d7 with the plan of just advancing the pawns on the queen side, and she played g4, which I realized during the game again that it shouldn't be that good immediately, but somehow I failed to prove. I played knight h7, protecting the pawn on the square g5. And here it seems that I had to just, ignore my opponent's action, play a4, and then capture on d4, play knight b4, c5, so continue playing in the center and on the queen side, because those are weaknesses. And she's not really, she shouldn't be able to create any attack on the king side. No, instead I decided to play bishop e7 and get my pieces exchanged, which is okay, which is fine. It's not that bad. But here somehow it would have been better to capture, to play knight c4 and to try to undermine the center by playing c6. But I decided to keep exchanging. Still okay, still fine. But here I made a mistake, yeah, and it's quite an easy mistake to make, because, well, her only chance is counterplay on the king side, and I decided to blockade this pawn, but I had to just ignore. I had to ignore the fact that she can play f6, g6, because, surprisingly, she doesn't have anything like special. I can play rook h8, which is quite important move, and thanks to the fact that my queen is controlling this f6 pawn and the center is closed, she doesn't have enough power to break through. But again, in a practical rapid game, you don't really it's very hard to evaluate whether your opponent has enough pieces, or it's like it feels like a gamble. So I decided to play queen f6, but unfortunately after that my queen is stuck instead of, my queen is stuck here, and the queen is a very powerful piece just to blockade and to defend. Well, I got under pressure, but I did defend pretty well up to the point. I was very proud. I spent quite a lot of time here, almost 5 minutes in a rapid game, and I found a very nice plan of transferring my rooks to the second rank, which is quite far from obvious, but it did give me enough compensation to make my opponent make mistakes. But then again, I made mistakes myself. d5, e takes d5, and here, like, the right way to play, but you don't understand why. It's pretty hard. The right way to play was to, well, there are several right ways. To attack the pawn on d4, I could have played a rook to d2, or, like the computer suggests, e4, which is very hard to understand why, but the reason is that white's main idea in this position is connected to breakthrough, is connected with the move h4. And for example, here after h4 I would still need to play e4 and then rook takes f2, but here after e4, queen takes e4, it finds even a better move, which is again you just don't understand why this move is a better move, but it's a prophylactical kind of move. King to g7, and here after h4 suddenly, I mean, she's not in time. She's just in time to exchange everything. Rook g5 doesn't work because of queen takes g5. And that is the strongest way for black to play, but I failed to find this continuation in a time trouble. I played knight takes f5, and that is losing, but my opponent didn't find the right way to play it, the correct. First of all, she could have, I think, just pinned my my knight, queen e4, and if I take on f2, she can just ignore, you know, the whole situation, just keep pushing the pawn, b5, and suddenly, I mean, even though my rooks look so nice on the second rank, but unfortunately due to this pinned knight and the queen that needs to protect this knight, my position is lost. And she captured. It's also good enough to win the game, but here she had to play f3, which is also pretty far from obvious, but because you don't want to cover your rook, but it stops my king from getting to the center, and what's more important, it somehow white manages to take the second rank under control. And then her plan is simple, right? She has so many pawns that they will eventually move forward and win the game. But again, I was lucky in this game. She played rook f3, I played king to e4, and yeah, I managed to survive, although again, a very tough game with black, and I was pretty unhappy. And in my next round, well, the third round of the Women's World Cup and the last round, unfortunately for me, I was pretty happy with the way I played in classical part. Well, first my opponent opted for the London. I played the same line that Fabiana Caruana actually played in the Open World Cup. I played knight h5, and my opponent was not prepared for this line. In that game, white tried to protect the knight by playing f4. Instead, my opponent played knight to d to f3, and that let me just, you know, I just exchanged everything. And actually, if I would be more precise, I could have tried to push harder in this game. I could have tried to get something. Thank you guys for your support. Welcome back gifts. I could have tried to find the right plan, and the right plan here is to prevent white from playing b3, rook c1, b3 and c4. And in order to do so, I need to play rook c6, surprisingly. And that was like the most precise way, because after knight rook to b6, she plays rook to c1, and okay, b3, c4 again is in the air. Played knight to d7, b3, rook c6, queen d2, and here again I had some like possibilities, like tiny possibilities to pose more problems to my opponent, but they were like very tiny, and I was a little bit imprecise that at some moment I needed to make accurate moves. Okay, that's okay. Unfortunately, white played c4, and that means that they're very close to equalizing the game completely. But here, at this point, I should have, you know, played knight to d5, queen d2, knight to c3, and then starting to play, well, at some point, you know, just putting pressure. There are some ideas. So basically putting my knight to c3, which it's supported only by the pieces, and usually you try to put your knight on the squares where it's supported by pawns, but here it stands pretty well, because her knight is also like not supported by any pawns. and it hangs in there. And my knight on c3 protects, takes under control this important square. And I mean, yes, it's not a big deal, and the computer evaluates this position as almost equal. But in a practical game, okay, well, rook d5 is coming, and she was not in a serious time trouble, but still at this point she had 18 minutes for the next 12 moves, so some you know, problems. That was the only chance. Instead I played rook c1, queen b7, but it doesn't lead to anything. And here I had to be careful, you know, a little bit careful, but I think I made everything right. We exchanged everything and agreed on a draw. And in the second game with white, I also got a chance to put some problems to my opponent. At some point she played the Berlin. I opted for a very quiet positional line with rook e1. Like, again, the question here whether black will be able to develop her pieces and to coordinate them well. d5 rook e8, okay, there were still some games. b6, I think it's a relatively new move here, at least I didn't know that, but okay, there are ideas like that in similar lines, so it's a good move overall. But I was pretty proud of my play here. I think I played very well. c4, c6, posing as many problems to black as possible. Rook b1, that's the move I was like very, very proud to find. And here she started to play inaccurately. She played knight to g7. It's not the most precise move. She could have taken on d5, play queen d6, like forcing me to protect, and then like prepare queen e7. But okay, knight g7 is still okay, although like not clear why to move away the knight from f5. And yeah, here she made a mistake. Not a serious mistake, but well, pretty serious, because after d takes c6 it's almost equal. After bishop takes c6 I get chances, and my chances, thank you guys, my chances of course are connected with those beautiful pair of two bishops. And here was the moment where again I could have posed more problems to my opponent by playing bishop to c6. And actually I wanted to make this move, but then I thought to myself, okay, knight c5, attacking the bishop, then knight e4, you know, attacking another bishop. Why do I give my opponent so much time to attack my pieces? But actually it's not that dangerous, so I would move away. Knight e4, I should play bishop f4. She should play, I think, d5 in order to exchange this pawn, not to be left with a weakness on d7. But in that case, again, I play rook d1, I exchange, and I end up in a very, very nice position with a pair of two bishops and possibility to put pressure onto my opponent. So a slight edge for white, maybe not that slight actually. Unfortunately, yeah, I gave away this possibility. I played bishop e3, which is not that precise, and I played b4, d5, and here, yeah, she found a very nice maneuver, bishop c4, using the fact that my back rank is weak, and after a4, bishop d3, exchanging a bishop, and I offer a draw because after rook a5 it's a drawn position. And so I was heading to the second tiebreak of mine, and unfortunately this tiebreak didn't go well for me. So let's see. In the first game we opted, after knight h3 we kind of transposed to the queen's Indian defense that I've played many times, and my opponent was well prepared. I misplayed here, and knight c7 is not the most precise move in this position, because after capturing an e4, after knight e5, white can just simply win a pawn. Of course, I saw it, but I was hoping that after bishop takes e4, bishop takes e4, rook takes e4, I will get some compensation. You know, I can attack the rook, then this rook kind of protects the bishop and the pawn, and I was hoping for compensation, but there is not enough. Instead, my opponent played knight to g5, but that leads to a very, very complicated game. And I was playing much faster than my opponent, and I was very happy about the way I played. I mean, I liked the moves that I made. And again, I was putting, if you look at the clock, like at this already position, my opponent had 4 minutes versus 16. And yes, I mean, mathematically, she is better here. But the position is so complex, and again, I was playing faster and good enough to force my opponent like to think. And the key moment of the whole game was here. I played h6, h5. That is the key moment. I played knight e6. I decided to play it safe. I had the possibility to play knight e3. I had another possibility that I considered to wait for b4, to move my rook somewhere. Rook c to d8, as I understand now, would have been like a much better choice, because here most likely my opponent would play b4, and that's kind of a serious mistake. Suddenly here, after b4, like capturing a knight d3, I get a very, very nice initiative, and here rook c7 doesn't lead to anything. I can, you know, many things that I can capture with my knight, and but unfortunately I played knight e6, and here my opponent replied with a brilliant rook c7, which I saw, but I just misevaluated. And I spent quite a lot of time, and I went to a line. I miscalculated here. I went to a line here. I was planning, when I was capturing on c7, I was planning to play bishop b5, and I saw that white wants to play g4, but I thought that, oof, how clever, I can play queen to e6, and after bishop takes b5 I can capture on g4 with double attack. And I was so proud of myself to like spotting this line during the game. But unfortunately, when I already captured on c7 and she captured back, I realized that after bishop b5, g4, queen e6, there is rook d6 intermediate move, and unfortunately there is not enough squares on this diagonal, and my queen just needs to go away, and yeah, the bishop is gonna be lost. So okay, I went all in. I played queen to h3, but here white's position is just easily won. Somehow we both, she and I, we both missed this queen b8, a very cute idea for white to win. Luckily for me, she played b4, so she gave me some chances, because again she was playing on seconds, and I was so happy. I played rook a8. I thought that I found a very nice idea, you know, to bring my rook into play, and after rook takes a8, after queen d4, that game over, white wins. But again, my opponent was in time trouble. She captured, and that's the biggest mistake. Yeah, when your opponent captures and you capture back automatically, you should always think. And here I had to play queen to d1, and that's a draw. That's a draw. I mean, she cannot escape from checks. Unfortunately, I captured back, but here, yeah, you know, the game is almost over, because after rook a1, she can capture, she can, yeah, protect her king with her newly born queen. I had to take on b8 with my rook here. It would be more challenging for her technically to, no, I have to give a check first, and then play e3, queen f5 unfortunately is possible, but it would be more challenging. I mean, there are some chances, right, practical chances to save the game, but okay, bishop is a bishop, and unfortunately this pawn is alive, because without this pawn it would be a draw, but this pawn is alive, and still had to play like that. And the second, I mean, games are being lost, and my opponent played well, not a big deal, but unfortunately my white game didn't go well at all. At some point I just misplayed very badly. I opted for the Italian game, played a rare line with knight b2. Somehow, since she played h6 before castling and then she castled here, d5, yeah, she had to play queen d6 and alongside castle, I think. And here I decided to play g4, which shouldn't work, but you know, it looks so nice to me and it's a nice idea. Okay, in a rapid game it's a possible idea. Rook g1, king h8, bishop d2. I think bishop b3 is a nice way to try to play, but okay, d4. And here again I made a huge mistake, like the last mistake of my tournament. Here again I had to play bishop b3. It would have been much better, and the position is so complicated. Or knight f5 was, of course, I think like the most reasonable move here would be knight f5. And even though my attack doesn't really lead to anything, she can continue pushing her pawns here. But I mean, it looks very tense, right? It looks very tense, but I just made a suicidal move, just a complete suicidal move, a terrible move. I played c4, and the game is basically over after that. And it's just over. I'm just I mean, too slow on the king side. Still I had to play knight f5. I don't know why I made all those moves. Queen d3 is just a4, queen f5, knight f5 finally, but here, yeah, she found a very nice maneuver to put some pressure on the queen side, and that's it. That's it. She was precise enough. Well, the position, of course, is overwhelming for black, and I made some more moves, but unfortunately no chances even to survive, and I had to win. And that's it. Yeah, that was the end of my 2023 World Cup. Unfortunately, this second tiebreak didn't go my way. It happens. It happens. A lot of food for thought after this tournament, but right now, yeah, this World Cup is still in full swing, and the semifinals are being played in the women's section. As I mentioned today, Anna Muzychuk made a draw against Nugar Salimova, and yeah, Nugar Salimova, she's playing amazingly. I mean, the game with black pieces, she played very well, very nice game today. And what happened in the game between Tan, let's see, where are the games? Don't see the games, today's games, for some reason. Against Tan and Goryachkina. Why did they disappear? Let's reload. Yes. What? Goryachkina is winning. Good for her. So it might be a revanche. And actually, someone noticed that 3 out of 4 players in this year's, in 2023 World Cup, are the same compared to 2021 World Cup. So Goryachkina, Tan Zhongui, Anna Muzychuk, and just Salimova is playing for myself. Is yeah, it could have been the same semifinals, but okay, it's not anymore. And Alexandra Goryachkina, if she wins, and it seems that she's on the verge of winning, so it seems that she outplayed her opponent in the sun game. Somehow white just completely forgot about the importance of the open files, and yeah, and black just managed, you know, to get through. So if Alexandra wins today with the black pieces, there are great chances she's gonna hold with white pieces tomorrow, or even win and qualify for the second consecutive final for her. she's already qualified for the candidates, and that means the rules are quite complicated. They are different for women and men, but it's not only about the World Cup. Well, for Alexandra it's about the World Cup victory, but for other players, other 3 players, it's also about the candidates, qualifying for the candidates. And well, when I was 17, I was in this kind of tournament in 2001. I managed to get to the finals, and I played the tiebreak back there. But okay, it's another story. A lot of young players, and it's very nice to see those young players compete and fight. We need new faces and new names. And that's it for about my story of the World Cup recap. I'm going to sign up now for the, where did I put it, for this Title Tuesday. Yeah, let me show you this World Cup recap preview, and that's for my YouTube viewers. And since I'm streaming this live on Twitch, I'm getting to the next stage, which is the Title Tuesday event. Yes, I agree to play fair. Hopefully Dirk is gonna help me. And yes, so that's it with the recap, and let's move on. The chess life goes on for me, and my next over the board tournament is going to actually starting very soon, in 10 days in Düsseldorf. It's gonna be a World Rapid Team Championship, but we're playing not for countries but for teams. It's like World Cup actually. It's going to be a rapid event, so expect another recap if you're watching it on YouTube. And yeah, if you're watching it on Twitch, the show must go on.